Marcus Thompson never imagined that one day his biggest dream would become a reality. At 16, he was just a regular teenager from a poor neighborhood in Chicago, a place where every day was a battle to survive. The nights before, Marcus would sit in his small living room, the dim light from an old TV casting shadows on his face as he watched the Chicago Bulls games that often featured his idol, Michael Jordan. To Marcus, Jordan wasn't just a basketball player, he was a legend, an icon who represented greatness not just in sports, but in life itself. Marcus had grown up in a family with limited financial resources. His mother, a nurse working the night shift at the local hospital, sacrificed everything to ensure her children had what they needed. Despite the long, exhausting hours she spent at work, she always greeted Marcus with a warm smile when she came home. Her sacrifices did not go unnoticed by Marcus, and it motivated him to push himself harder, to make her proud and to someday help ease the burden she carried. As a child, Marcus would dream big. He dreamed of a day when he could escape the constraints of his small apartment, when he could step into a world far greater than his own. And more than anything, he dreamed of working at the United Center, the home of the legendary Chicago Bulls, a place where he could be close to the sport he loved and the players he admired. But it wasn't just about being in the arena. Working there would allow him to contribute to his family's financial needs, especially with his little sister Sarah needing expensive asthma medication. When Marcus received the call informing him that he had been hired for a job at the United Center, his heart soared. This wasn't just any job, it was the opportunity of a lifetime. He wasn't just a fan sitting in the stands anymore, he was going to be a part of the magic that surrounded the Chicago Bulls. He would be able to see Michael Jordan, not just on TV, but right in front of him, on the very court where all the legends played. The very thought made Marcus's stomach flutter with excitement. Walking into the United Center for his first shift, Marcus felt like he was living in a dream. Wearing the bright purple uniform with the Chicago Bulls logo on it, he felt like a superhero. The arena was alive with the buzz of fans, and the energy that filled the air was palpable. He knew he had earned his spot, and it wasn't just about being in the building. It was about what that moment represented. For Marcus, it was a sign that things were about to change. Each day he worked, Marcus couldn't help but feel grateful. As he stood behind the concession stand, preparing drinks and snacks for the hundreds of fans passing by, he realized just how special this opportunity was. He could see the court from his station, watching the basketball players move like giants, effortlessly sinking shots and running up and down the court with the kind of skill Marcus had only ever seen on TV. The atmosphere was electric, and Marcus could feel himself becoming part of something bigger than himself. It was an experience he never took for granted. But working at the United Center wasn't just about watching games and being close to his heroes. It was about his family, his mom and his little sister. Marcus knew that every paycheck he earned would help with the bills, and every day spent at the arena was a step toward making life a little easier for his family. It was his way of giving back to his mom, who had always worked tirelessly to provide for him. He dreamed of a day when his hard work would pay off, not only in a job well done, but in making their lives better. The job itself wasn't easy. Marcus worked long hours, standing for hours on end, making drinks, organizing snacks, and handling customers. But he didn't mind. He knew that this job was a stepping stone toward something bigger. He thought about how his mom would be proud of him, how Sarah would look up to him as an example of someone who worked hard and persevered. Marcus was determined to prove to himself and to the world that he could make a difference in his family's life. And yet, despite everything feeling right, Marcus didn't know that one single moment was about to change the course of his life. A decision, small in the grand scheme of things, would soon set in motion a chain of events that neither he nor anyone else could have predicted. But this moment was also the beginning of a new chapter, one that Marcus couldn't have foreseen, but that would ultimately define his destiny. The United Center was filled with an electric buzz that night. It wasn't just any ordinary game. It was a game that carried the weight of expectations. The Chicago Bulls, led by none other than Michael Jordan, were facing one of their toughest rivals. Every seat in the arena was filled, every fan eager to see the magic that Jordan could create on the court. For Marcus Thompson, this wasn't just another night at the concession stand. It was the night he would get to witness his hero, Michael Jordan, play in person for the very first time. He had worked so hard to get to this point, and now, as he stood behind the counter, he felt his heart race with anticipation. The arena was alive in a way that only sports can make you feel. The sound of the ball bouncing on the hardwood, the deafening cheers of the crowd, the unmistakable hum of excitement that filled the air. It all felt surreal. Marcus had seen it all before on his little TV at home, but now it was different. He could hear the squeak of the players' sneakers on the court, feel the vibrations of the crowd's cheers in his chest, and watch as the game unfolded just feet away from him. His station was busy, as expected, with customers eagerly grabbing snacks and drinks as they made their way to their seats. Marcus was used to the rush, but tonight the excitement in the air made everything feel more intense. The clock ticked down, the Bulls' game against their rivals was getting tighter, and the fans were on the edge of their seats, waiting for something to break the tension. But Marcus's mind wasn't entirely on the crowd. Every few seconds, his gaze kept drifting toward the court, especially to one player, the greatest player the world had ever seen, Michael Jordan. As Marcus worked, he could see the Bulls' players on the court, all of them giants in his eyes, but none more so than Jordan. Michael Jordan, who had redefined the game of basketball, whose name was known worldwide, whose legacy was sealed in the hearts of millions. Marcus had spent years watching Jordan play on television, dreaming of the day he could see him live, and now that day had come. But even as he watched, something didn't feel right. Jordan was moving slower than usual. There was something in his eyes, a lack of focus, a faint tremor in his hands. Marcus had seen athletes push through pain and fatigue, but this was different. This wasn't just tiredness. This was something else. The crowd was still cheering, oblivious to what was happening. Marcus, however, couldn't shake the feeling that something was wrong. It wasn't just that Jordan was having a bad game or that he was simply out of sync. No, it was more than that. There was something off, something that wasn't right. And in that moment, Marcus knew he had to act. The next few moments unfolded in what felt like slow motion. Marcus, standing behind his counter, glanced toward the back of the concession area where the special drinks were kept. These weren't just any drinks. They were specially formulated electrolytes for the players, reserved for moments when the team needed to rehydrate during intense games. They were kept separate from the regular drinks sold to the fans, a secret stash that only the team and staff had access to. Marcus's heart raced as he made his decision. He had seen something in Michael Jordan's eyes, something that made him believe the superstar was in trouble. He couldn't sit back and watch. Without a second thought, he grabbed one of those special drinks from the fridge and rushed toward the court. He knew he was breaking the rules. He knew that no one, especially not a concession worker, was allowed to interact with players like that. The rule was clear. No special treatment for anyone, not even the legends of the game. But as Marcus clutched the drink and ran toward the court, a stronger voice inside him drowned out the doubts. His mother's voice echoed in his mind. Sometimes doing the right thing means taking a risk. It was advice she had given him 1,000 times. His mom had always taught him to do what was right, to help others when they needed it, even if it came at a cost. This was one of those moments. Marcus's heart was pounding as he neared the court. His hands were shaking not from fear of the consequences, but from the sheer urgency of the situation. He could see Jordan on the sidelines, looking pale and clearly unwell. As Marcus approached the security checkpoint, he was stopped by a large security guard. The guard's voice was firm, and his expression was one of confusion. "You can't be here, kid," the guard said. But Marcus wasn't deterred. He held up the drink, his voice trembling as he explained, "I need to give this to Michael Jordan. Something's wrong with him. He needs this." For a split second, the security guard hesitated, but then something remarkable happened. Michael Jordan, who had been barely moving on the sidelines, lifted his gaze toward Marcus. Their eyes met for a moment. And then, in a gesture that stunned everyone, Jordan waved the security guard aside. "Let him through," Michael Jordan called out, his voice firm yet calm. Marcus's heart nearly stopped. In that brief moment, he had the kind of connection with his idol that he never thought possible. He rushed forward, his hands shaking, and handed the drink to Michael Jordan. As Jordan took it, their eyes locked again, and the smallest of nods passed between them. That simple nod spoke volumes. A recognition of Marcus's concern, his courage, and the undeniable bond between a fan and his hero. As Marcus turned to head back to his station, the crowd erupted into cheers. The moment was captured on the giant screen above the court, and the fans, who had no idea what had just transpired, cheered for the young worker who had just helped the greatest player in basketball history. For Marcus, it was a dream come true, a moment he would treasure forever. But as he walked back to his station, his excitement was overshadowed by the looming consequence of his actions. Standing in the aisle was his supervisor, Mr. Peterson, arms crossed, face clouded with disappointment. In that moment, Marcus knew that his job at the United Center was about to come to an abrupt end. The hum of the arena was deafening as Marcus returned to his station. The Chicago Bulls had just made an incredible play, and the crowd erupted in joy, but Marcus could hardly hear the celebration. The pounding of his heart in his chest drowned out everything else. His feet felt heavy as he walked back through the sea of fans, each one oblivious to what had just happened. They were cheering for the game, for the victory, but Marcus wasn't celebrating. He knew what was coming. He tried to shake the sense of unease, but it was impossible. He had done what he believed was right. He had seen Michael Jordan struggling, and when no one else noticed, he made a decision to act, to help, to step out of his role as a simple concession worker and do what he thought was needed. It wasn't about the rules, it was about human decency. But in the world he worked in, the world of strict policies and guidelines, doing the right thing didn't always mean it would be understood. As Marcus approached his station, his stomach churned. He could already see Mr. Peterson standing near the entrance to the employee area, arms folded, his face hard and unreadable. The concession supervisor had been watching him the whole time, his disapproving eyes never leaving Marcus's every move. Marcus had known Mr. Peterson for only a short time, but it was clear that Peterson was a stickler for the rules. He had made that very clear during Marcus's training, emphasizing the importance of following protocol, especially with high-profile customers, including the players. The rules were simple and unyielding. No exceptions, no special treatment, even for Michael Jordan. Even if he needed help. Marcus knew he had broken that rule. The weight of that truth pressed down on him as he walked back to his station, feeling like every step was taking him closer to a moment that would change everything. The game raged on, but Marcus was no longer focused on the action on the court. His mind was racing with thoughts of what would happen when the game ended. What would Mr. Peterson say? Would he get fired? How would he explain it to his mom? How would he explain it to Sarah, who relied on his paycheck to cover her medical bills? He had been so excited about this job, about the opportunity to make a difference in his family's life, and now, just hours into his first game night, he was staring at the possibility of losing it all. The night dragged on and the game reached its thrilling conclusion. The Bulls had won, but Marcus could hardly feel the excitement in the air. He just kept working, trying to delay the inevitable. The buzz of the crowd seemed distant as he mechanically went through the motions of cleaning up the station, restocking supplies, and handing out final orders. Every so often he would glance toward Mr. Peterson, who was watching him with a stern look. There was no escaping it now. Finally, the last fans filed out of the arena, and the sweeping sound of cleaning crews began to fill the air. Maria, the senior worker at the stand, gave him a sympathetic look as she wiped down the counters. She had seen what happened. Everyone had seen it on the big screen, and she knew what was coming. She walked over to Marcus, offering him a small, almost sad smile. "Mr. Peterson wants to see you first thing tomorrow morning," she said quietly, her voice tinged with sympathy. "For what it's worth, kid, I think you did the right thing." Marcus couldn't speak. His throat felt tight, the words stuck, as though the weight of the entire situation was choking him. He had no regrets about helping Michael Jordan. He still believed he had done the right thing. But the reality of losing his job, the job that was his lifeline, felt like a crushing blow. The thought of explaining it to his mother, to Sarah, was unbearable. He wanted to crawl into a hole and disappear. But there was no escape now. The bus ride home felt longer than usual. The city lights blurred as he stared out the window, lost in thought. His uniform, once a symbol of pride, now felt heavy in his backpack, like a burden he couldn't carry. His mind kept replaying the moment he'd handed the drink to Michael Jordan, the way the superstar's eyes had locked with his, the brief nod of acknowledgement. The cheering crowd, the cameras capturing the moment. It all felt like a dream, a beautiful moment that would forever be tied to the reality that he was about to lose everything. As Marcus walked through the door to their small apartment, the familiar smell of chicken soup filled the air. His mom was at the kitchen table going through bills, and Sarah was sitting nearby humming a tune. At first glance, his mom didn't seem to notice anything was wrong, but Marcus knew better. She could always tell. "Hey, baby," his mom greeted him warmly, pulling him into a hug. "How was your first game night? Did you get to see any players?" Marcus wanted to smile, wanted to share the excitement of the night, but it felt fake. His stomach twisted and the words caught in his throat. "Mom, I messed up," he said quietly, pulling away slightly to sit down at the kitchen table. I broke the rules." His mom sat down beside him, concern in her eyes. She had been there for him through every struggle, every disappointment, but this felt different. Marcus had worked so hard for this opportunity. This job wasn't just for him, it was for their family. The thought of losing it, of having to tell her that he had failed, made his chest tighten with guilt. "Marcus," she said softly, her voice gentle but firm, "you're a good kid. You always do what you believe is right, and that's what matters most. Whatever happens, we'll get through it. You did what you thought was best." But Marcus wasn't sure she understood. He had helped his hero, Michael Jordan, but in doing so, he had broken the one rule that held everything together. Would he regret it? Or would this moment of kindness be the spark for something bigger? He had no idea what the future held, but he knew that the consequences of his actions were just beginning. And as he lay in bed that night, staring up at the ceiling, he couldn't shake the feeling that everything was about to change forever, whether he was ready for it or not. The day after Marcus Thompson's courageous act of helping Michael Jordan, he woke up to a world that felt both foreign and overwhelming. The sun filtered through his bedroom window, but the light seemed dimmer than usual. Marcus felt a heavy weight in his chest, one that was impossible to shake off. The events of the night before replayed in his mind like a movie on loop. The image of Jordan's grateful nod, the crowd's ecstatic reaction, and the deep, sinking feeling of knowing that his job, his lifeline, was about to slip away. But it wasn't just his life that had changed, the world had noticed. What Marcus didn't expect, what he couldn't have foreseen, was the massive wave of attention his actions had generated. The video of his gesture, rushing to give Michael Jordan the special drink during the critical moment of the game, had gone viral. It wasn't just the local news stations that picked it up. It was everywhere. Social media exploded with the hashtag Justice for Marcus. The footage of the young concession worker, so full of heart, helping the greatest basketball player in the world, was making its way through every corner of the internet. At first, Marcus had no idea the extent of the attention. He hadn't even checked his phone the night before. But as he sat at the kitchen table that morning, still feeling the aftershocks of the conversation with his mom, he heard the buzzing sound of his phone going off. The messages, the calls, the notifications, they were overwhelming. His fingers trembled as he picked up the phone, unlocking it to reveal a flood of social media notifications, text messages, and emails. "Marcus, you're a hero. People are demanding you be rehired. I can't believe they fired you for doing the right thing. This isn't right." It was a strange mix of excitement, anger, and confusion. He scrolled through the endless messages, many from strangers, fans of the Bulls, even some from fellow employees at the arena who expressed their disbelief at what had happened. His inbox was filled with support. There were even a few media outlets asking for interviews, eager to get his side of the story. Despite the outpouring of support, Marcus felt like he was in the eye of a storm. Everything was happening so fast, and yet it all felt so far removed from him. The roar of the crowd the night before, the cheers that echoed in his mind, felt like a distant memory. What mattered now was how he would handle this newfound attention. How would he explain to his family that he had lost his job over a moment of kindness? How would he tell his mom and sister that the stability they had fought so hard for was now uncertain? But amidst all the noise, Marcus couldn't ignore the incredible support from those around him. His phone was flooded with messages of encouragement. Maria, the older worker at the concession stand who had shown him the ropes, sent a text that made him pause. "I'm so sorry, kid, but what you did was right. There are people out there who are proud of you. Don't let anyone tell you differently." Her words meant more than he could express. Maria had seen the whole thing, the way Marcus had rushed to help Jordan when others just watched, the way he'd broken the rules but done so with the purest of intentions. She knew he wasn't just another worker. He was a person with integrity, with the courage to do what others wouldn't. Her support, along with that of countless others, made Marcus realize something profound. Sometimes, standing up for what's right doesn't always lead to immediate rewards, but it can lead to something even greater. People see you. People remember you for the good you do. As the day wore on, the messages kept pouring in. Marcus heard from a surprising source, some of the players on the Chicago Bulls. They had seen the video too, and several of them took to social media to express their admiration for Marcus. From legendary players like Scottie Pippen to younger stars who had yet to leave their mark, they all rallied behind Marcus. Scottie Pippen himself tweeted, "Much respect to Marcus Thompson for doing what any of us would have done. It's easy to forget that we're all human. That kid showed true heart." The overwhelming response from the public was hard to ignore. People were rallying behind Marcus in ways he never imagined. It wasn't just sports fans. It was people from all walks of life who could relate to his story, who could see a piece of themselves in his selfless decision. It was an outpouring of love and respect, and it felt like the world was embracing him for the first time. But amid the flood of positivity, there were still others who focused on the rules, on the consequences. News outlets debated whether Marcus should have been fired. Some sided with the arena, claiming that rules were rules and the integrity of the organization was important. Others, however, pointed out the irony that a young man who had done something to help a legend was now being punished for it. In interviews, some fans called the arena's decision to fire Marcus heartless and tone-deaf, arguing that it overlooked the greater good in favor of upholding a strict set of rules. The more Marcus saw, the more he realized how deeply his actions had resonated with people. They weren't just supporting him, they were standing up for the idea that sometimes the right thing to do is to break the rules, especially when those rules stand in the way of helping others. But the most surprising part was yet to come. As the day wore on and the news continued to spread, Marcus's phone buzzed with a message that he would never forget. It was from none other than Michael Jordan himself. "Marcus, I saw what you did. You did the right thing. I'm proud of you. Don't let anyone tell you that you didn't." The message was simple but profound. For Marcus, it was a moment he would carry with him for the rest of his life. Michael Jordan, the man he had admired his entire life, had acknowledged his actions. It was the ultimate validation that he had done the right thing. And it came from the person whose opinion mattered most. The support didn't stop there. As the day ended, Marcus received a call from the Chicago Bulls organization. They wanted to speak with him. The call was brief but powerful. The team had been following the situation closely and had seen the incredible public support for Marcus. They told him they wanted to offer him a special role within the organization, a role that would allow him to continue contributing to the team and the community in a way that aligned with his values. The whirlwind of emotions, the fear of losing everything, had suddenly turned into something unexpected, a glimmer of hope. Marcus wasn't just being recognized for his bravery, he was being given an opportunity to grow, to be part of something bigger than he could have ever imagined. As the day ended, Marcus couldn't help but smile. It wasn't just about the attention or the offers. It was about something far more meaningful. His belief in doing the right thing had led him to something bigger than he had ever dreamed. The world had spoken, and they had spoken loudly, and in that moment Marcus realized something important. Sometimes doing the right thing doesn't just change your life, it changes the lives of everyone around you. What do you think? Have you ever faced a situation where you had to make a difficult choice, one that went against the rules but felt right? Share your thoughts and stories in the comments below. And don't forget to subscribe to our channel for more inspiring stories like Marcus's. Let's keep the conversation going, because sometimes the greatest victories come from the most unexpected decisions.